You've been knitting hats and scarves, and now you want to knit a sweater, and that deeply color-saturated superwash wool is calling to you. It's so pretty, and it's easier to care for, so a great choice, right? You cast on, follow the pattern, you checked your gauge, finish your knitting, and then you soak it in cool water for blocking. But when you pull it from the water, you see a giant shapeless sweater and panic sets in. What went wrong? Well, it wasn't your knitting. It's really just a misunderstanding of your yarn. This is the infamous superwash growth, and today we're going to demystify it. Hey knitters, today we're tackling one of the biggest decisions you can make for your project. The great yarn debate, superwash versus non-treated wool. On the shelf, these two types of wool can look almost identical, but they can behave really differently. And let me say right off the bat, this is not about one wool being good and the other being bad. They're both a big part of our knitting and they both have a lot of value. Let's compare the real practical differences in how they look, how they feel, and talk about why they behave the way they do. Once we look at the structure of these yarns, you'll better understand the properties of both, and that will help you make better decisions when you're picking yarn for your next project. So what even is superwash yarn? Let's have a quick science lesson, and this will be very basic. Both yarns start with wool in its natural state. And if you put a single strand of wool under a microscope, you'll see that it's covered in tiny overlapping scales, like shingles on a roof or scales on a fish. Sounds kind of funny, but these scales are super awesome. They help repel water and dirt, and they give wool its incredible warmth and bounce. They're there for a reason. But, and this is a big one, if you add water, heat, and agitation, like in a washing machine, those scales flare out and lock onto each other like microscopic Velcro. You've probably heard of that before. It's a process called felting, and it's why a wool sweater can shrink into a dense, tiny sweater that will only fit a small child, and it will probably be distorted too. That's where the superwash treatment comes in. To make wool machine washable, those scales have to be neutralized. And the most common method of doing that is the chlorine Hercoset process. First, the wool gets a quick chlorine bath that smooths down the sharp edges of the scales. Then the fibers are coated with an ultra-thin layer of polymer resin called Hercoset, which is basically a type of nylon or plastic. The coating seals everything up and prevents the scales from grabbing onto each other. Think of it like sanding down a rough piece of wood, then sealing it with varnish. The end result is a fiber that's slick and smooth and won't felt, which is why you can throw it in the wash. Eventually, that coating may wear off, so you still need to be careful when laundering. Wool sweaters, however, don't need to be washed that often, so that could take years and years to happen, and it may never happen. Interestingly, the earliest efforts in making wool superwash began in the early 1900s, but it wasn't until 1967 that the Hercoset method was patented in Australia. Fast forward to 2011, Congress passed an extension to the Berry Amendment, and that mandated that all U.S. military apparel be made in the USA. Buttons, zippers, and everything. Wool is used in military dress uniforms and hats. So whether you like superwash or not, this act really revitalized the American wool industry. The U.S. military purchases about 20% of American superwash, and that wool becomes superwash at the Chargers Mill in South Carolina. This is the only U.S. facility that creates superwash. So 20% goes to the military. Most of the rest goes to made in the USA, garment makers, or home good makers. A smaller amount goes to making yarn. I also want to note that the chlorine Hercoset process does have some byproducts that need to be treated before being released back into the environment, which is true for many industries. And I don't know exactly how that's done, but I do know that there's rules and regulations that are followed in the US, and in many other countries, but that may not be the case everywhere in the world. And it's also worth noting that there are more eco-friendly superwash processes out there that use things like ozone, natural salts, or plasma treatments instead of chlorine, but they aren't widely used. So I imagine they either don't work that well or they're not economically feasible right now. So the chlorine Hercoset method is the major player in the industry. And when you see superwash on a label, it likely means that the fiber has gone through this process. The change that happens in the process is key to everything else. It affects the yarn's color, its texture, and its behavior. And it also supports American sheep farmers and manufacturers of American-made goods and home goods. And that's a good thing. First up in our showdown between superwash and regular wool. How do they look? I have two yarns here, both from Cascade Yarns, both 100 grams, 220 yards, or 200 meters. This one is Cascade Superwash, Cascade 220 Superwash. This is Cascade 220, a non-treated wool. So exactly the same weight and yardage. While they look pretty similar, there are differences. First, let's talk color. The Superwash yarn is incredibly vibrant. The colors are deep and saturated, almost jewel tone, and that's because removing the scales and coating the fiber lets it soak up the dye faster and more deeply. The smooth surface reflects more light, giving the colors a sheen, and that's why so many hand dyers love superwash bases. They're perfect for those wild, speckled, and intense colorways. Now look at the regular wool skein, and from now on we'll just call it wool. The color's still beautiful, but it's noticeably more muted and has more of a heathery, complex quality. The natural scales on the fiber diffuse the light and make the dye absorb more gently, creating wonderful depth. It has what I'd call a soft, woolly glow instead of a slick sheen. Neither is better, they just have completely different looks. Next up, the texture. The superwash yarn has a definite sheen to it, a slight gloss from the lack of scales and the polymer coating. It feels smooth and a little slippery in your hands. It's often thought of as softer right out of the skein, which makes it popular for things that you wear right next to your skin, like summer tops and hats. The wool yarn, on the other hand, is matte. It has a more rustic, textured feel that knitters often call toothy or grippy. It just feels more woolly. The texture comes from all those little scales that are still there, and it gives the yarn a substantial, authentic feel that reminds you that it came from an animal. Let's move on from how they look to how they actually knit. And this is where you can really feel the difference. The most important thing to understand is elasticity, or what knitters call memory, and that's the fiber's natural ability to bounce back after you stretch it. Wool has amazing memory. Those little scales don't just cause felting, they act like tiny grips holding onto the fibers next to them. So when you stretch the yarn, they resist, and when you let go, they pull everything right back into place, which is what makes wool so perfect for projects needing structure, like fitted sweaters or sharp cables. The stitches stay put and the fabric feels stable. And if you're knitting color work, that grippiness is so good for holding your floats in place. Now let's talk about the superwash experience. The very process that makes it washable, stripping the scales and coating the fibers, also robs the yarn of its natural elasticity. The fibers are slick and slide right past each other. That lack of grip means the yarn has way less memory. It'll stretch, but it doesn't really bounce right back. While you're knitting, this can feel wonderfully smooth and fast. The stitches glide off the needle, but that slipperiness can also make the yarn more likely to split. And if you're using metal needles, you might feel like your stitches are trying to make a run for it. Knitting with wool feels like you're building something solid. The fabric has integrity from the very first row. Knitting with superwash, it feels more fluid, more drapey. The fabric is immediately supple and loose in your hands, and that's a good thing. It's exactly what you want for a flowy shawl or a drapey cardigan like this. But if you're knitting a traditional Aran sweater, you'd notice the cables looking less crisp and the fabric feeling a bit heavier. So now let's compare swatches so that we can see how the yarns behave. We have a swatch of each yarn, both with the stockinette section of 30 stitches and 30 rows framed by garter stitch. Side by side, they look almost identical. The wool swatch measures 6 1/4 inches wide, 4 1/2 inches tall. The Superwash swatch is close to the same size. It's a little bit narrower at 6 inches wide and a little bit taller at 4 3/4 inches tall. And that's probably because the stitches are already a little more relaxed. They're close, they're not twins, but they look pretty similar. I washed both swatches by hand. I just soaked them in cool water, and the key here for the wool is no agitation or heat. Now, technically, I could have put the Superwash swatch right into the washing machine on a gentle cycle with cool water, but I don't usually do that for a couple of reasons. One, it seems kind of wasteful to run a whole cycle for just a little swatch. And I don't want to put it in with other laundry because this is the first time this yarn has been washed, and there's always a possibility that some of the dye may be released. I don't want to accidentally color something else that I don't want to have that color in. Really, it's just much quicker to hand wash both swatches. Okay, the wash is done. The wool swatch appears to be about the same size as before the wash. The Superwash swatch is noticeably larger than before the wash. We aren't going to measure yet because the gauge now doesn't really matter, but it appears to be about 25 or 30% larger than it was before the wash. Now on to drying and blocking. For the wool swatch, I'll just lay it out flat. It appears to have held its shape really well, and I'll leave it to dry with a fan blowing on it to speed up the drying process. I don't stretch it or squish it at all. I just let it dry flat. So what about the Superwash swatch? Well, many, but not all Superwash yarns can actually go into the dryer on low heat. Check your label before you do this, because I know it sounds terrifying, but low heat can actually help the polymer coated fibers snap back into place and regain some structure. I put it in the dryer on low heat and I do 20-minute increments. It's just a small swatch, so it does go pretty quickly, usually 1 or 2 cycles of 20 minutes. Now, both swatches are dry. The wool swatch is perfect. It's exactly the same size as it was pre-washing, 6 1/4 by 4 1/2. The fabric's light, airy, and stable. Now the Superwash swatch, it definitely shrank back from its wet, overgrown state. Now it's 6 1/2 inches wide and 5 1/4 inches tall. And that is about 20% larger than it was before the wash. Be warned though, this amount can vary widely depending on the specific yarn you're using. So you can't always rely on 20% larger. It could be 10, it could be 25, you need to check every time. So now that both are dry, this is the time when you can reliably calculate the gauge to see if it matches your pattern. And I do have a video on my KnitWiser channel that tells you how to do that. So scan the QR code, or there's a link down below for that. So the Superwash yarn didn't fail. It just behaved exactly as its properties dictate. The growth isn't a flaw, it's really a feature. But if you don't account for it, it can mess up your project. And if you understand it, you can use it to your best advantage. But that's why you absolutely must wash and block your swatch when using Superwash yarn for things that have to fit. It's not optional, it's the most important step of your project. If this swatch test helped you understand the differences between Superwash and regular wool, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss my next video. And please head down to the comments below and tell me, have you ever had a superwash disaster or a felting disaster? We've all been there, so please share your experience. Okay, let's turn this knowledge into action. It isn't about a good yarn versus a bad yarn. It's about using the right tool for the right job. So when should you choose superwash? For things that need frequent washing, socks, baby clothes, kids' sweaters, they're all perfect for superwash. If you're giving a knitted gift to a non-knitter, it's the kindest choice you can make. For projects where drape is the goal, it's fantastic for drapey shawls, scarves, flowy cardigans, and for lace, it allows you to block the holes open aggressively, and they'll stay that way. For intense colors, like this sweater, the cowboy sweater, it's knit in superwash. And if you want a project that screams with color, superwash bases deliver that pop and saturation really like nothing else. And it really does work well for stranded color work. It just doesn't hold on to the floats quite as well. When should you choose regular wool? For structured garments, if you're making a fitted sweater or anything that needs to hold its shape, wool is your best friend. Its natural memory keeps the garment from sagging and growing. For cables or other textured stitches, if you want to get those crisp, high-def cables that pop right off the fabric, you need the toothy grip of wool. That texture locks the stitches together and keeps them from flattening out. For traditional color work like Fair Isle, the slightly sticky quality of the wool is a huge help in color work. It evens out your tension and helps the floats grip the main fabric. It also makes steeking, which is cutting your knitting, way less terrifying because the fibers want to hold on to each other. Lastly, for maximum warmth and durability, because it retains all its natural properties and air pockets, wool is generally warmer and more durable. It will last forever. So, which yarn is best? The answer is both of them. Superwash and regular wool are not enemies. They're just two different fibers with their own unique talents. The real secret we learned today wasn't that one yarn was bad. It's just seeing how predictably different they are. And when you understand the science, the feel, and the performance of the yarn, then you're in control. You can make smart, informed choices that lead to beautiful, successful projects every single time. What other yarns would you like me to break down for you? Let me know in the comments. And here's another video that I think you'll enjoy. Thanks for hanging out and knitting with me today. I'll see you in the next one.